Hey there, my name is Craig Forman. I am a lead people scientist at Culture Amp, also very involved in building out our community via our chapters around the globe. This year, CMX, which is the community of community builders, asked us to present at their CMX Summit talking about our community and our chapters. So what we built was a program called Getting to the Heart of the Culture First Community, where basically what we wanted to talk about was what's at the core of this community and what's it all about. And I hit it from two angles. One is I come in the beginning and I discuss our core principles. We believe that these principles are at the center of how we run and operate this community, and it's the thing that we all rally around, no matter where we are, Berlin, Melbourne, or New York City. The other piece, though, the true heart of our community are the leads, the people that are stepping up, that are volunteering their time to build and grow these chapters and to host these conversations, bringing together other people who believe a better world of work is possible and are willing to do something about it. So what I did was I invited three of those leads along to speak about their experience, why they do this, what inspires them, and what keeps them going. We have a lead from San Diego, Gary Ware, Jimenez Zabiria from Miami, and also Rachel Keck from Kansas City. We put together about a little over 30-minute program digging into that. So that's what follows. I hope you find it valuable, especially if you want to learn more about our community, about how we built it, or also about the kind of people that are involved making this and bringing it to life. So so I'm not going to waste any more time. Coming up, our presentation. I hope you enjoy. Thank you. Getting to the heart of community. First of all, thank you. Thank you for choosing to join us for this session. My name is Craig Forman. I'm a lead people scientist at Culture Amp. My background is in organizational psychology. My passion is around helping workplaces, really just changing the way that we work, rethinking our workplaces. And I've worked with organizations for a long time around that. And I had the opportunity last year to partner with Culture Amp to build our Culture First community, or evolve our Culture First community. And that's what we've been up to, and that's what we're going to talk about today. Culture Amp is a Australian-based company, and in Australia, I've learned something I've never seen here, and I really like it. When they start presentations, they acknowledge the land. They acknowledge that they are visitors, that there were people before them. So what I wanted to really quickly do is share that, my name is Craig. I'm in Northern California, and I'm on Miwok land. So the Miwok were the native people that lived here, the indigenous people prior. Gary is coming in from San Diego. You'll meet Gary in a bit, and he's in the Kumeyaay land. Jimena is in South Florida, and she is in the Tequesta land. And Rachel is in Kansas City, Missouri, on the Kickapoo land. So we just want to honor that we, there is long and there's depth, and I think it's a really beautiful tradition, and I wanted to bring that here into this as well. All right, so here's what we're going to do. We're going to go back, and I'm going to set this up right now. We're going to go back into Slido in a moment here. And what I want to do is turn that off and turn that on. We're going to involve you in this as well. So I want you to take a minute. You're here. You chose to be here. We talked about getting to the heart of community. I will be joined by some of our chapter leads, right? Because the whole idea here is we're going to tell you a little bit about our community, but our leads really are the heartbeat of our community. They're the people out in the world that have stepped up to build these chapters. So what we wanted to do was ask you for a minute, think about, briefly, if you could share one thing you'd like to walk away from today's session where you get some more insight. So I'm coming to you with these leads, these people that are in the world that have stepped up, volunteering to do this work. We want to dig in and share our reflections. So if you would, let's go back into Slido. You should see the question in there now, and just take a minute. Yeah, great. This is great. And what's going on is Gary and Jimena and Rachel are going to be looking at these as well on the other side. So let's see, and you can see what's coming in right now. Let's do this. Building deeper connection with strangers. What brings your leads joy from being involved? These are all great. The music's still playing, is it? Huh? Do other people still hear the music? I thought it was off. Let's see what's going on. Virtual vulnerability, wonderful. Okay, so look, we're gonna keep those coming, and our leads are gonna come in, and part of when we address and talk, they're gonna look at those and pick some of these to speak to. So what I want to do is kick this off and talk about a few things. Look, Culture Amp is a software company, but we stand for something. We believe in something around what can be different in the world of work, and we've had a history of bringing people together to have conversations, discuss, and create community. We got very intentional about it last year and said, let's go bigger and create this chapter program, and that's something that I'm leading, particularly on the events that were in person, now virtual. And we wanted to do it in a way that was going to be fluid, and we wanted to do it in a way that would allow for a Berlin chapter to grow and a Melbourne, Australia chapter to grow and a San Diego chapter to grow in their own unique way for their own unique community that would tie it together. And we came up with three things. There's just three main things that we do. We want to be clear that we are clear on the who and the what. People that believe a better world of work is possible and are willing to take action to do something about it. If that fits, that's you. The second is 5 core principles, and we're going to talk about that in a minute. But these are kind of a value system that connects all of us. No matter where you are, you can do different things, but these values are what hold us together. And the third is a model or a framework for how we run a meeting, right? And what does a culture first meeting look like? And hopefully at the very end, we'll talk a little bit about that because I've built this around that as well. So, but what I want to talk to you today about is the principles, the culture first principles, because I think from one side of the equation is where's the heart and how we built this? It's the principles. And then the heart of how it comes to life are our leads. So really quickly, let me tell you about our principles. The first, foster belonging and acceptance. We want to create environments where people feel like they can show up, they can be accepted, they can belong, and also a place for all of us who want to change the work world to model and lean into this so we can bring it back to our workplaces. So we know what that means when we're talking about it, and we can experience it and play with that. So we want to create an environment in our gatherings to do just that. The second is a willingness to reflect and grow. Growth mindset. Are you willing to come together and have conversations and be open and hear alternative perspectives and maybe question your perspectives? Very important to us. The third, one of Culture Amp's values, have the courage to be vulnerable. That's the only value of ours that we brought across. We believe in this. We believe that vulnerability is courage, and it takes vulnerability to make these sorts of shifts. And if we can create space where people can, again, lean into that vulnerability, it makes it easier then to go into the world that we're trying to change and bring that as well. So we wanted to bring that. Fourth, there it is. Put learning into action. Action's embedded in what we do. And you notice that when I talk about who we are, people that are willing to do something to make change, right? We are a community of people that want to drive a change, a difference, right? Even Culture Amp through our software is trying to make a change. So if we're coming together and only connecting and having conversations, wonderful, but change may not happen. So we wanted to embed that in our value system, that we're looking to change something. And finally, a different one, connection inside, business outside. When we were building this, we learned quickly that people really wanted to, they liked these events, but they would say that sometimes it became transactional or it was just about doing business. Look, we're a for-profit company. We understand, and we're bringing great people together that do business. So what we thought was, look, when we're together as humans, but if wonderful things happen outside of here and opportunities happen because of it, great. But when we're together as humans first. We're not there to make transactions happen. So these are our 5 core principles. These we believe are the heart of what we're doing. So what I want to do now is spend some time with our chapter leads. And we're doing good on time. I want to spend time with our chapter leads. And I'm going to bring each chapter lead on. And now they're going to tell you a little bit about why they do what they do. And then they're going to pick one of the things that came up in the slides to address. So the first person, I'm going in alphabetical order, is Gary Ware. Gary, first of all, thank you very much for taking part in this. I've really appreciated our work together, and also what you've helped me a lot with upping my video game. So thank you. Just really excited to have you here. I think that you really represent unique energy here in this. You don't have an HR background. You've come to this to build culture, and just really enjoyed what you bring to it. And I thought it'd be great to have you here to share a little bit of that. So first of all, thank you.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Absolutely. Okay, so let's not waste any time. So we have about 5 minutes here. The first question: why do you do this? What pulled you to this? You're putting extra time in. You've got a lot going on. Why do you do this work, and what would you share with other people that are building community and looking to engage with people like you to support them in that?
Well, first and foremost, one of the reasons why I am so dedicated and I love this is when you find people that are so like yourself you feel compelled to do whatever you can to help them out. But in regards to culture, I've been so fascinated about it because I worked at a number of different companies where the culture started out so strong,
Yeah.
but we weren't intentional. And then over time, it started to fracture. And so I've been racking my brain of how can you be consistent? How can you create an environment where people can thrive? And I found that within Culture First.
Yeah. So what I'm hearing is you had a personal experience. You had, in your own life, were seeing where things were not going so well in organizations, and you saw this as an avenue to kind of be part of that change, and that's what pulled you in.
Agreed. Yes.
Awesome. Okay, so now you've been doing it. You've run a series of events. You've been engaged and involved in this community. Like now that you're in it, like I guess the next one, what keeps you here? What's the aha, or what have you learned, or what's inspired you along the way?
It's not rocket science. It's all about intentionality. And what I love is the framework that we have here creates that magic environment where people can be vulnerable, where people can be themselves. And at the end of the day, we can get the work done.
Yeah. Um, what would you share? I mean, like, look, people in this audience are thinking about building community, different types of community. So, at a high level, what would you say to somebody that wants to build a community, may not be a culture first community, and wants to engage with people in the world and get them excited and have them join the cause? Like, what would you share with somebody like that?
Yeah, I know looking at the list of questions, one of the common ones is how can you create vulnerability in a virtual environment? And my advice is, like I said earlier, be intentional. What do you want people to feel, to experience? And how can you reimagine what that looks like in this environment? One of the things that we did, because when we started Culture First San Diego, it was in in June, so it was in the height of all this unrest, and we put it out there, and we said we're going to be talking about race, equity, inclusion, and we were like, all right, are people going to show up? And we were so happy to find out that there were people across all areas of the organization came to be part of this. And again, we followed the framework of grounding, connection on the upfront, allowing people to be vulnerable. And once that started happening, and especially as a leader, us modeling that for them, we create something pretty awesome where people were saying, "When's the next one?"
Hmm. That's awesome. And just to reiterate, you pointed out that was in response. So on the Slido, we saw one of those was like creating with vulnerability virtually. So you're speaking to that
Yes.
about like creating that space. And I know that you do that in your own profession as well, like virtual. So creating that space. Any like one other tip, just because I know you do a lot of this around running a great virtual event and creating vulnerability inside of virtual events.
Yeah, the other thing is, how can you create delight?
Hmm.
One of the things that we did, again, we were just throwing things out and seeing what sticks. We asked people, what is a song that reminds them or makes them think of family?
Mm-hmm.
And we took all of those suggestions, and on the fly, we created a Spotify playlist and we played that within our virtual meeting. Everyone loved it. And then afterwards, we sent out that link so that they can reference it and remember the amazing time that we all had.
Yeah. I'm so happy you reminded me of that. That was so inspirational to me too. It was like, oh, just creativity, think outside the box. Like when you did that, you had them think of the song, create that playlist, then you could share that playlist. Like what a simple way. So I think we'll end with just that idea of given this new parameter that we're in, how do you re-engage and get creative versus like why you can't think about what you can do. There are a lot of neat ideas or ask around. So Gary, you've definitely inspired many people here on that end, and I really really appreciate it. Thank you so much for coming and sharing your perspective.
My pleasure. Thank you
All
for
right.
having me, Craig.
Yeah. And then, so next, we're going to go all the way to the other side of the country, to Miami, to my friend Jimena Zubiria. Jimena, thank you so much for saying yes and being willing to take the time to do this with us. Yeah, so first, thank you.
Thank you.
I do want to say that I think what was always special for you was that a lot of people in our community, I think, were around this world and knew of Culture Amp and were ready to get involved. And you didn't any of that. You kind of came a little bit from a different angle, and a colleague mentioned it, and you joined us. So you've kind of almost like grown into this with us, and it's been a really cool thing. I'm calling that out too for other people that are listening that are building communities, just like the different angles and how people may find your community. So I really do appreciate that. Thank you. Okay, so let's get into this. Why do you do this work? I mean, people are listening. They want to know about building chapters or what Culture First Chapter Leads all about. What inspires you, and what would you share with other community builders about this sort of work?
Sure, of course. Well, first, thank you as well, because if it wasn't for you, I don't think I would be here. And this has brought so much to my life in the last couple of months. So I just, want to take that moment to say thanks, which is also the reason why I said yes to even join it in the first place. So when I first heard about Culture Amp, or Culture First rather, and no, I wasn't aware of it. I didn't know that it was going on. And it came through a colleague who said, hey, this sounds like something you might be interested in. And once I actually joined the first sort of onboarding call of where you showed us the mission and the principles of why you do this, I was like instantly attracted and thought like, yes, there's a lot going on right now. It was, middle of the pandemic and there's a lot of going on at work, but I thought I need this, right? I was like drawn to the energy that it was bringing me to think about even getting involved. So that's the first reason. So from more of like a selfish perspective of feeling energized by it and really getting a lot out of it personally. And it did come at a perfect time. It came at a time where the world was feeling isolated. I was feeling isolated. I'm pretty sure everyone was feeling this way. And so the thought of joining a community was something that was really intriguing to me as well. And the mission of wanting to build better workplaces, especially where I am right now in South Florida, Miami, it was something that we're always talking about. How do we attract talent into the region, and how do we make this place a place that people want to build lives and build careers? And I think if I can do my little piece by helping those companies actually build better workplaces, then I feel like I've been able to contribute to the greater mission of even our entire region. So
Yeah, awesome.
those really are the reasons for me.
Any ahas or surprises? You had an idea going in, you were attracted to it, but now you're doing it. Anything that popped up afterwards that you're like, wow, I didn't expect that?
Honestly, the biggest thing is just the power of that connection, especially across the globe. Right now, I feel like I've met more people through this community in the last couple of months than I have in a long, long time, right? And people from all over the world. I mean, you're on the other side of the country. I'm here. We talk to people in Europe all the time. So that connection and that power of that connection is what to me has been like paramount in this whole thing, right? And something that I, would say also to new leads, thinking
That's
about
awesome.
what to do is really prioritizing that connection.
Awesome. Okay, so one of the things we did in this earlier was we surfaced things that other people wanted to hear about, and I think you chose one that you wanted to speak to. What is that?
Yeah, so there was one about how to build trust, especially with leaders. And I think this one for me is interesting because there's two perspectives. It as a leader and also as a community member that wants to get involved. So I think the first thing really, if you want to get involved, is communicating that with the leads, right? But also just understanding like what can you bring to this to the table and offer that up with as much authenticity and just genuine interest in really want to make that connection. And I think that will be so appreciated by everybody who's running these chapters, right? And I think in any kind of community, I would say that would be appreciated. And then I think from the leads perspective, like how to build trust with the community, um, we get so caught up in wanting to bring content and really amazing speakers and PowerPoints or whatever, but really what people come to you for is the connection. So it's about remembering to prioritize that connection over content and realize that that's really what's going to build trust, because the more we have these conversations and the more we feel comfortable with each other, the more trust we're going to build. And therefore, it's kind of a win-win, and that's how, and you'll attract the people that you want in these groups as well, right? And if someone comes and they're not feeling it, then that's not the community for them, and that's okay. They'll find their community elsewhere, right?
Yeah.
So I think the more we lead with authenticity and really just drive these meetings with connection being our the core of it all, I think is how trust is really built.
I love it. And I'll just say connection over content, what you said that, or I've even taken from you that connection is content, which I think is really cool to think about. Jimena, like I've learned as much and grown from you, vice versa. So I really appreciate you in my world and our world. And thank you for taking the time to do this with us.
Of course. Thank you.
So next to somebody that was one of our, what we call pioneer leads in the middle of the country, Rachel Keck in Kansas City. And hello, Rachel. Thank you so much for being here. First of all, thank you again. One of our pioneer leads, meaning you got involved early on. You were one of 3 chapters to help us even figure out what we were doing. So I've always appreciated our partnership, our friendship, and the fact you're willing to get in there and try something with us. So thank you very much and welcome.
Thank you for inviting me back then and for inviting me today.
Absolutely. Okay. Don't want to waste any time. You have lots of great stuff to share, and I want to get that out to the world. So first of all, why do you do this work? Like, what is it about this work, and what would you say to other people looking to build community in this space?
Mm-hmm. Well, I said yes to growing a culture first chapter here in Kansas City because I wanted a space that I could be heard and seen and acknowledged. I was working internally at that time, doing culture in people, and there was nowhere really to go to talk about the struggle and the hard things safely. And so I said, yes, let's create a place in Kansas City where culture leaders, people that believe in culture first, can come and feel safe enough to share their struggles and leave filled up and ready to take on this work. And what was surprising to me is that although we have a wonderful Kansas City chapter and we're connecting with culture leaders we didn't even know were here before, it's this greater culture first community that has been the big surprise for me. So people in California, in London and Edinburgh, folks in Jimena and Gary, and all these culture first folks around the world have been this greater tribe of people that it's just been life-giving, honestly.
And take a second real quick just to call in you don't spend as much time being where you're located, but we have a ton of great stuff going on also in Australia. So Melbourne, Sydney, Adelaide, and probably 5 others. So it's massive and it's growing. But you hit on something that's interesting, and I didn't bring this up with the others because I think something unique to you. You really have gotten in there beyond just your local community. You've seen like this bigger community. You've jumped in to support go a little bit deeper in that, because I think that's important if somebody's building community to think about not just, community's bigger than your just your region. So say more about that relationship and how you've been able to support and what you've seen among the greater community.
Yeah, what's interesting is growing the Kansas City chapter, and I've noticed this with other chapter leads, is you're kind of head down in trying to grow something there locally, but you've honestly done an amazing job of creating space for chapter leads to come together and grow a greater community. And so that's really kudos to you, because I don't know that we would have, we're just head down doing the work. But as you've created that space, it's just been inspiring to hear what other people are doing and get to know other people, and have things come up in our local chapter that I think, oh geez, Josh in LA would be a perfect person to talk about this to our chapter. Plus it's great for our chapter members to know that they're also a part of this greater community.
That's awesome. First of all, thank you. And I guess just in this conversation to reflect, I don't know that, first of all, as some people that know me know that I've never built community before. I'm really passionate about the space, and I've leaned into this and learned. So I didn't necessarily have an intention going in exactly how that would look. But just to share my perspective has been the leads is the chapter I support. and then ask the leads to support their chapters. So it's a nice model because I trust our leads will take care of our people, so it's like, so I think what you've experienced is just my attempt to create a smaller chapter among our leads. And I'm touched by it every week we meet. It's my favorite meeting. So thank you. And it's good to share that. Okay. So did you have a chance to look at the reflections, and was there something that jumped out at you?
Yes, measurement, how do we measure culture jumped out at me, because I don't know if I'm alone in this. I think that maybe a lot of people in culture feel this way. It's hard to measure. You're dealing with intangibles and the gray space of things. And so I'm always attracted to, how do we measure? How do we have some clarity on if we're moving towards the right things or not? And so that's what caught my attention. And I think clarity is tied to measurement. We have to know where we're going, what we're moving towards. And that may be a feeling, that may be a more tangible vision that we can measure. But so for us here in Kansas City, we really wanted a space where people came and felt filled up. They felt safe enough to share, and they leave feeling more filled up than they came. And so being able to measure that in the way of surveys and one-on-one conversations, at least at this point, to know, are we moving towards that, or are we moving away from that? So I think there's different ways to measure, not so much numbers on a page, but are we moving towards, are we moving away? Is this feel like it's expanding, or is it contracting? But really being clear about the outcomes, I think is the key.
Yeah, I'll put on my my people science hat, and just I think about like left brain and right brain often, and that what I'm hearing there is left brain, we need some metrics, run some surveys. Let's take a look. Are people happy? Are they enjoying it? But let's trust our right brain as well around this. Are we setting out to do something bigger that's hard to measure? And if we have a group of people around us and we can be honest with each other, are we doing that and trust ourselves to be hitting these objectives that might not be as empirical? So, and I think that's a balance with community, right? If it's all about the numbers, then is that about is community? Has any great community been built only on numbers, right? Maybe an accountant community, but all right. Rachel, thank you so much. It's so great to just be able to amplify you and highlight you here, but it is also a way of my way of saying thank you. And so thank you.
Yeah.
And let's bring everybody back together and kind of start bringing this home. All right, thank you, Rachel. We're going to bring everybody together now. All right, wow, time really is flying. Thank you all. It was so great to just spend a little bit of time, and I really appreciate it. Now we're moving into our last few minutes here. In Culture First, one of the things that we're big on is action. I spoke about that earlier, this idea of taking action. So as we're regrouping and wrapping up, I think it's really important, and I'm going to ask the audience also to think about action, but to hear from each of you, like, what is an action right now? What is something you're thinking about or wanting to do to take action as you're building your community? I'll just go around and I'll start. Gary, action, your community, what are you thinking about?
Yeah, for me and our group, it's all about amplifying our community base so that they can feel heard.
So amplification. What does that look like?
Yes. It's taking the people and making sure that whatever they're working on, we can take that and spotlight it within the group. Taking their teams and making sure that everyone knows what everyone's doing, because, we're one large community, and that's just going to help everyone feel like they're loved.
Yeah. Awesome. That's great. Thank you. Jimena, we talk about action. What's an action you're thinking about with your community?
So for my community, given that we are South Florida and we are such a connector between different parts of the world, particularly we are considered a headquarter for Latin America in some cases for lots of companies, I would really love to amplify as well, or actually rather open up the chapter to some of the regions outside of Miami, because we do work with so many people from Latin America particularly. So I'd love to really kind of get Culture First in there as well via Miami.
I love it. I love, culture, but broadening our culture, right? We are still in certain areas. So I've always been excited about, you talked about Europe and Spain and now Central and South America. And how do we broaden this? So that's super exciting. Thank you. And Rachel, what's on the action block for Kansas City?
Kansas City. So, an action right now for our Culture First leadership team here in Kansas City is really collaborating our leadership. So, instead of a couple people really driving the chapter, how do we better share leadership so nobody gets overloaded and everybody has a voice in what we're doing? And I would say my personal action right now for our Kansas City chapter is really diversifying both the leadership team and our chapter members.
Yeah, diversity, and it's challenging, but I love that you're leaning into that.
It's hard.
Thank you. Before we wrap up, I said I'd come back. I said there were three things, right? We talked about the fact that our community getting clear on the who and the what, our core principles, and I said there was a framework. So I just wanted to quickly regroup and call out what we did today, because we followed that framework, and it's a 5-part framework to run a Culture First event. One is the welcome. So when you came in, we had music, we checked in, we did that welcome. And the second was connection. We had limited time, but that was the same thing. We got some sort of connecting with each other, seeing where you were, what you're bringing into the room was that connection piece. Then there's the work, whatever that gathering is about. In this case, it was the interviews. It was conveying that information. Action, so that's what we're talking about right now. And finally, close. So we're going to close in a second. But I want to say, if you've been through this today, think about one small thing. Did you hear something during this talk that was an aha? Was there something that was presented that I spoke about that you could incorporate? And is there small action? Remember, we don't have to change the world. It's simply a step forward, a movement towards the change that we're looking for. So I'd ask you to think about that, if you could walk away with that one small action. And then I will say, if you want to learn more, please go to www.cultureamp.com. You'll see chat community in the upper right-hand corner. Click on that and you can find out more. You can even raise your hand to lead a chapter. So we're looking to grow this community. And if you think you're the right kind of person, we'd love to have a conversation. And like I said, closing, right? We believe an event should have a beginning and a middle and an end, and just kind of wrapping it up, not leave it hanging. So the closing, it can be a gratitude, a reflection, or a summary, but just something to energetically end the meeting. So I'm going to go around. I'll go first. I'll ask everybody just for a very brief close. Mine really is around gratitude for all the amazing people that have stepped up and are willing to get involved, especially the three of you. Thank you so much for doing this today, to share your information, what you have. So I really appreciate you. I appreciate what you do in this community we're building together. So thank you. Gary, what's your close?
Connection.
All right. Jimena?
Same, connection.
All right. Rachel?
I'm just super impressed with your technology.
Thank you. I've been working really hard at it. Awesome. And thank you, CMX, for asking us to be part and giving us the space to share this. You can reach any of us on LinkedIn. We'd love to be in touch if you have questions. So thank you very much, and we hope to hear from some of you soon. We hope you got something out of it. Bye-bye.